Hi, and welcome to the Man Myth Podcast, episode 17, the prime number.
17. Awesome. Well, we're a little further away this time.
We are a little bit, just a hair,
A little bit.
about 750 miles.
Yeah, I was driving home and I had the GPS on, and I knew the way. I just like to have it for the time, and it said 4 hours and 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it said 5 hours and 40 minutes, and I was like, what? And then the road was closed before 64 was closed before Asheville. So we found it, which took an extra almost. It was a mess, but got home safely.
That's
Back
the
in
important thing.
back in the country, in the quiet.
Forgot half of his stuff.
I did. I left a few things. You do have a beautiful home, and it's a pretty
Thank
quiet
you.
neighborhood.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
it's quiet for now because we're the only, us and the people across the cul-de-sac are the only ones that have kids.
Mhm.
Well, our next door neighbors have kids, but 3 of their kids are older, so they're never home, and nobody's really outside. But it's like you could go sit on the back porch and just be. It's just quiet as could be, unless the construction's going on next door.
Kids play and doing all the fun stuff, the grandpa stuff, holding little Tallulah. So we got into getting to know yourself last week. I think it was there's a lot of stuff to cover on this. When you saw the questions, you were like, "This could be 3 episodes." Probably gonna be right.
It really could be.
So, a couple things that we covered last time, just to let you guys know, in case you're catching up, is we're trying to get people to know themselves as they want to see themselves, or as their true essence is, and not so much what people have told you about yourself or the things that you've heard, the layers that aren't true. The episode even before that, we talked about how we could tell ourselves lies that seem like truths, or we can believe them so long that they, in essence, become truths. So, a couple things we did just ask the question: do you get time to meet yourself? And we'll walk through that a little bit. Would you be your friend, or does your heart have a smile? Those are things that we covered last time. We got into the what are your favorites, and I got the pink shirt on today just as a tribute to the answers that we had. But a lot of times when we're working with ourselves, I think we end up not knowing who we are. And like I said last time, I've had the opportunity to get to know myself over the last 8 to 10 months, and it is an amazing. I don't recommend the way that it happened, but it is an amazing opportunity if I just turned it into that and had the quiet time and had the time to myself and asking questions and seeing who I feel like I am versus all the stuff that I've heard in the past. It's been a pretty amazing experience.
And I'm proud of the way you've handled it for sure. It's like you said, it's not the exact way you want to learn. You want to get to know yourself, but it's a good catalyst for that. And it could have been way worse. I mean, I feel like people handle divorce, I mean, either really with a lot of dignity, or they go the opposite way and it's just all downhill. But it's never easy to do what you've done and handle it, and I hope you're handling it as well as you seem to be. Is I make sure I check up on you at least once a week. I try to, because God forbid, you have one day where it's too much. I don't. Nobody wants that. But I'm proud of you, and I'm happy you're making so much progress.
Yeah, and it the thing that connects that to me is when we look at the people that have that we know that have in essence had that day where they just couldn't see continuing. You know, Twitch was one of them, Stormy. Those are things that always stay in my head. And I look at what are the triggers and what is that instant that that decision was made. And, you know, I feel I have friends and I have people that check in with me all the time, which is awesome. Um, and then, you know, you and your sister and I mean, I have that support and I always know if I need anything then I can reach out. And that's super important to me because I know I'm not if I called you at 3 in the morning and said, I'm having some issues, you'd be right there.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's a big help for me. And I hope that the people that, you know, that have committed suicide or the people that have contemplated it get had that feeling at some point in their life they just reached a point where it just they couldn't handle it anymore. And you know, I've got more things to do, so I'm going to be around for a while.
Right. And that's a big part of it because a lot of these people that have ended their lives prematurely. I mean, you mentioned Twitch, Storm, which is super close to us, Anthony Orchard. Um, you have Robin Williams, Chester Bennington, like all of these people who, from the outside looking in, had it made, had everything they could ever want. They had all the money they could ever want. They had loving families. They had all this stuff. And then, but you don't know that one day. And I've had those days. I've had days where I'm like, okay, this is it. We're doing it. But I've been lucky enough, especially recently, to have the support group and to have learned the skills to get myself into another mindset, into a better place where I'm not taking that final step. Because as far as I'm concerned and what I've experienced, it's never just a snap decision like, okay, this is it. Boom, I'm going to do it. It's okay, this started the day off this way, and then it's a multitude of steps and bad decisions and mistaken thoughts. And the biggest one I've ever had with that is the hardest one to get over is that nobody will miss me. Nobody will even notice I'm gone because that's a lie that has been I've been telling myself, which goes back to the other week, that like you said, I've told it to myself so many times that I feel like it's a truth. I won't not anymore, but I did, and it's hard to get past. That's the hardest hurdle to get past for me was realizing that there are going to be people that miss me. I'm not going to be just gone and leave nothing in my wake because it's going to be a nightmare for a lot of people dealing with everything I leave behind. It's not a, oh, well, we just got to bury him. Like there's so much anger, hostility, sadness, and hurt that goes along with when you take your life. And a big one that like I haven't talked about on here, but it is Chester Bennington. He's the lead singer of Linkin Park. Um, he took his own life, and he was a huge advocate of mental health. But that just because you're a huge advocate of getting help and being there for people doesn't mean that it always translates to your life. And when you get inside your head to a certain degree, what you're advocating for, what you think out on the outside, what you think consciously doesn't matter. It just goes to that. point of finality, and that's somewhere I never want to have to go until I'm much older and have a long, long life behind me.
Yeah. And I don't, even with the research that I've done, there's always statistics and stuff like that, about how and who, and they try to categorize it into certain things, but I don't, and we won't know because the people that are successful, we can't interview them. And
Yeah, exactly.
you
You
know
can't
what
you can't go there.
what goes with what is the trigger. I know, I mean, just what you read, I mean, Twitch actually checked into a hotel room, and I mean, so there's that wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a snap decision, it was something that was planned. um so if you can get into this, and one of the questions for today's that we'll walk right into is are you sad? And like when you said nobody would miss you, that can't that can't be correct for anybody, if that makes sense. But it is, it the whole process isn't rational. And I hope that anybody listening to this understands that that reach out is important on both sides of it, right? Somebody
Exactly.
needs to reach out to the person who may be contemplating it. The person who's contemplating it may should reach out to people that are truly, that do truly love them or would miss them. And the
Right.
chaos that you talked about in aftermath, I can't even imagine the insanity that goes with that. I mean, even with Stormy, I was like, man, we'd chat here and there and here and there. What would happen if I'd have done something different? Then,
Right.
it's really a tough thing. Um, and like, his wife and kids, and I mean, I can't even imagine. But anytime there's that happens, I can guarantee there's 20 or 30 people that are wondering if they did something different, if they could have stopped it. And I mean, that'd be at a minimum of number of people.
Oh, I'm sure. Then, if you're asking me the question, yeah, I am sad at every day. The only difference I found between 15 years ago and now is when I get sad, I wouldn't say I have steps, but I have things that I know will help me become less sad or help me become happier, because that's what this is all about. This isn't about not being sad. This is not about being happy all the time. This is about being aware enough of your feelings to know that, hey, this is starting. I need to get going. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. Like my big thing, and Pete Davidson, a lot of people talk about this, sunshine, that just the sun itself is a huge thing. I find that if I can just be in the sun and just kind of relax, take a breath, it just almost is like healing for your soul. And this is just me again, like I'm not saying that the sun is going to cure everything, but there's just things we learn from some of us have learned from experience, some of us have learned through research. But I think that the just getting out into the sun, because a lot of times when I was depressed, I'd go to work, come home, and I would stay in my house with no lights on, in front of the TV, not moving for a day, like just doing the bare minimum I could with my life. So it's hard to like get into a groove, but being out in the sunshine, taking a walk, little things can have the hugest impact on our mood and our feelings. But yes, I'm sad and I'm not happy about it, but
I think everybody goes through that situation. Like there are emotions in your life that you go through, and that's the key, is going through them and not getting stuck that when you get sad, it's that's it. I'm never going to be happy again. Although there's the mental, sometimes there's a mental cueing that does that, but there's a place where, like you said, breathing is, you know, sunshine's a huge thing, and you should get, at least, even if it's like through the clouds, getting that at least 2 hours of sunlight a day. It's really good to get 20 minutes in the morning and in the evening. And what that does is it gets your sleep cycle settled in. And sleep is another huge factor. Um, so I mean, it's okay to go through these emotions, but breathing, what we've done, and we're going to have somebody on to walk through this a little bit in a few weeks, hopefully. But posture is another thing. If you just, like, if you take some time, not if you're driving now currently, of course, or walking, um, but if you have a chance, just close your eyes and then imagine what somebody that is sad looks like. Right, their heads down, they're talk quietly, their shoulders are forward, they're kind of slumped down. That posture is the physicality of sadness or depression or inferior. There's all kinds of things that can go with that. But if you just roll your shoulders back, take your head and bring it back, and then breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, then what happens is it increases the oxygen to your brain. So you can imagine, if you're doing this little forward thing, you're not breathing correctly, it's going to cause your oxygen levels to go down, which creates anxiety. I mean, this is a simplification of it, but
Well, that's all we have
that's
time for, I
that's
think.
what can also happen, right? So the posture is another big factor. And I mean, there's tons of things that we can do. That's why we're talking about our toolboxes, is getting our toolboxes elevated enough, um, and enough stuff in them that we have the tools to walk through something like this and not sit in it.
Right. Well, and I like my favorite thing is getting, like, pushing through the emotions, because that's what it is. Even at your darkest time, having to push through depression, anxiety, that's half of the battle, is getting through that stuff. And like you said, there's so many little, like, physiological signs that you can tell usually, and not all the time. Some people are really good at hiding it, but you can tell when someone's even just having a down day. It doesn't have to be depression, or you can just tell when somebody's off, especially if you know them really well.
And I think that's one of the things that we lose in our we're losing in our society with social media, which in essence I call anti-social media, because there's nothing social about it in the definition of social. But we also need to surround ourselves with things that are joyful versus overwhelming. One thing that I've learned over the last few months is that I, I, I tolerate clutter less. And so what I'm doing is I'm walking through things, and I go through what's important for me. And is this important? Is this important? And we go back to that Maria Como or something like that, but she's the Japanese lady that says spark joy. And it's funny to watch her because and Rajiv, those, watching their joy of decluttering or honoring what they have versus having so many things. And me, years ago I had 500 golf clubs,
Yeah, the
right?
golf clubs were
And now I'm
crazy.
down. but I was trying to buy something, some type of joy, and it didn't happen. And there's a thing called I call it box cutter syndrome. So what happens, and I do this, I used to do this constantly, but now I have one. So I had 10 or 12 box cutters, right? And I could never find one. It's like, because you don't pay attention to it,
Right.
like where you put them, or so if you just have one, you have to take care of it. You have to know where it is all the time.
Right.
And so I got one like that folds and holds on my belt. So I know when I get ready to go out, like I was telling you with the other guys, being prepared, and when they were helping me do the deck and stuff like that, and finding those little tricks that made it simple, is just keeping that with me when I go outside all the time now. If I'm
Yeah.
doing something, I just throw it in my pocket. So if we get ourselves into overwhelm, it's much easier to get into that sadness or depressions, I think.
Right. Next
So
question.
over the years, and the question is, what are your interests, and have they changed, and how have they changed over the years, um, as we do the growth thing and get out of the muck and the mire, let's say.
Am I going first or you going first?
That's for you.
Oh, it's for me. Okay. Um I mean, my interests have changed quite a bit, especially um from when I was younger. I mean, I guess they have changed some. Some things haven't changed. I mean, I'm still into cars and motorcycles and all that stuff, but I think that's also the way my brain kind of works mechanically. So anything mechanical, I've always been interested in. Um, but I think that's kind of expected when you kind of have an aptitude for something. But then, I mean, some of the lesser stuff um, from my childhood, I don't really. I still like video games, but it's not. I get to play um, when the kids are sleeping. But I mean, you can attest. I used to want to play video game. It was all the time. I'd want to play video game. But a lot of I have a lot more interest and time for my children than anything else. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is like, I used to love going to the bar. I used to love drinking. I used to love when I was in high school. I loved smoking weed, um, and all of those things. I don't do any of them anymore. If I go out to a bar, it's a date night with Ash, and we go to dinner at a bar or something like that. But we don't go party anymore. We don't go to clubs, and that was a huge thing, especially in my 20s when I was in the military. I was going to the bar when Ash met me 3, 4, 5 times a week and spend it. I mean, if I had had any kind of good sense when I was in the Navy, I would have had plenty of money to do so much right now. I could have started a business with the money I spent at bars and clubs and on drinks and beers. Oh my goodness. But that's another thing. I grew out of that. I mean, I had a margarita while you were up here, and I drank a third of it because it tasted too much like alcohol. I just it's one of those things that once you get away from it, it's not I have a hard time even the once or twice every 2 or 3 months that I'll have a drink. I find hard to find something that I'll enjoy enough to even bother drinking. And most people are like, "Oh, well, I get drunk to have a buzz, or I drink to have a buzz or get drunk." I just don't want to feel that way anymore. Plus, I'm 30. I'm going to be 30. Wait, what year is it? 37 in a couple months. My body does not recover from a hangover like it used to when I was 22. And So I mean, it's just it's funny to see how those things have changed and how my complete mindset in that has changed. But I mean, and a lot of the stuff I like, we talked about it before we started recording. A lot of the stuff I like is stuff that I liked when I was a kid, but that doesn't that doesn't mean I don't think that means it's juvenile. I think it just means I found a love of something when I was a kid and I've nurtured it till now. I mean, I still love working on my car, and when I get another motorcycle, I'll work on that too. It's just something fun for me to do to kind of get my peace, you know. The kids will help me sometimes with the bike, but sometimes it's just or with the car. Sometimes it's just nice to do it by yourself. But I also don't turn them away if they want to help. If they want to come help and learn and do things with me, I'll never turn them down. But like the last thing I did was I put the headlights on the Jetta, and Grayson walked out and looked at it. Was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to help you," and walked back inside because he just knew he can
That's
almost tell when it's something Daddy needs to do by himself.
yeah, that's I think for me, I've always loved the outdoors, and I've loved being out in the outdoors. I just have a different I'd say a different relationship with it now. It's more of a like it used to be. It was my sanctuary. It was where I'd get away, and now it is, but it's a different connection to it because I love listening to the noises, like you talked about with hunting last. I think it was last episode. Um,
Yeah,
it's the way things happen. If you just stop and look at the ground, especially in the summer, and watch that, how much life there is in just that little 1 foot section. Or so for me, it brings a lot of joy. It is a stress reliever. We have, as you know, we have cliffs and caves and places to sit out here
yeah,
in the woods and stuff. And I could just go
and
out
run away.
and sit, right, and just not not do anything. Um, and that's how I surround myself with joy. If I was like in the city, or like I remember when we were driving around and I got the shivers just because the houses were so close. I was like, I can't do this. It's like it like where you are, it's not, but I don't know where we were driving. It was those little, but that would for me be overwhelming. It'd be just too
Yeah.
much. I can't because I'm here now. I'm a small town kind of guy. So
Well, you've
country
never
person.
really, yeah, you've always been. You couldn't have like you wouldn't survive in a house like that. You'd get so antsy and feel claustrophobic all the time, and that's why I'm glad we got the house we did, because it's kind of the best of both worlds. We live close enough to the city, and we live close enough to a town that we have everything we need within a couple minutes. But then when you come to our house, like you said, it's pretty peaceful. There's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of people running around. There's not cars blaring their horns or anything. It's just nice to kind of have best of both worlds.
When I was talking about like the decluttering or that, it's not just the physical stuff. It's the mental stuff. It's the emotional stuff, spiritual stuff, even physical stuff. Um, it's like thoughts that continually go through your head. I think it's Joe Dispenza says that 80% of our thoughts today are things that happened to us in the past. We're just rehashing them and rehashing them. And if we can get those thoughts out, then we open up space for self-talk and thoughts and creativity and things like that. Another thing for me is creativity. I love to have that. But again, I can have too much. I can have too many things to do.
Right.
Um,
Too many
if you
projects.
bought, yeah, too many projects. and going through the process of just decluttering my mind about them, and a lot of that has to do with just scheduling stuff. So like I have um, in the morning, I have a morning routine where it's pretty set. I get up, I drink a lot of water, I do my records work or the meditation, then I get some coffee, and then I go for a walk with the pups, feed the birds, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of my routine in the morning. And as I've had this opportunity, I'm scheduling, and not a hard schedule, but I'm scheduling more things like in the evening after the sun goes down and it's dark, I'll I'll get some house cleaning done, or I'll do some things just to get things out of the way. Like I have two dishes in the sink right now from supper that'll drive me crazy. I won't go to bed with that. But that's stuff
You
that
won't go to bed with that at my house either.
but that's just something that makes me sleep better. And if I get up, I don't want to get up to two dirty dishes if it or whatever it is.
Right.
So creating that space that allows me to honor not to have to tolerate things that drive me crazy is part of that decluttering that that I feel like I need to do for myself.
Yeah, we're trying to declutter right now. We've slowly but surely it's getting to the point where we just start throwing stuff out because we haven't used it. I mean, our the biggest thing with me is like you said, it's not just physical stuff, it's not just stuff. My biggest thing is my brain, and especially with work, trying to declutter because I go from job to job to job during the day. So I have to kind of try to declutter my brain. And the big way I do that is writing stuff down. So after every job, I'll write stuff in a little notebook I have in my van. I'll write down what I did. I'll write down what needs to be done and everything that I can think about at that moment. And I do it right when I get to the van. That way, when I get to the next job, I'm not sitting here going, okay, did I forget to lock the machine room? Did I forget to do this? Did I forget to do that? Is this okay? So I know I have it. I've not only done it, but I've written it down. So I've thought about doing it. And it just helps me ease into the next job and get to the next job and not have to worry about the last one. So that's really helped me since I started this new phase of my job.
I think it's sometimes when I coach people too, that if they, especially if they have a hard time sleeping or getting to sleep, and then we'll talk about, they'll be like, my mind just never shuts off, and I have them do the same thing. I have them do a list of things that they need to do tomorrow,
Right.
and not put it beside the bed, put it on the counter, someplace away from them, and that way they don't have to. If they find themselves worrying about it, then it just becomes kind of silly because they've already written it down, right?
Exactly.
So it makes it in the first few nights you're just going to do the same thing, but eventually it'll start peeling that off and you'll be able to sleep a lot better now.
It's one thing I've never had a problem with. I
Sleeping.
don't know. No, if we got off the podcast right now and I went upstairs, laid down, and closed my eyes, I would be asleep in 5 minutes. I never have a. Now my sleep apnea, that's a thing, but as I continue to lose weight, that'll get better because it did the last time. I just got lazy, gained weight, and then now it's coming back off because I'm actually being mindful of what I eat and mindful of how much I eat. But that's another thing that the doctors want. I have a sleep study and all that stuff, but the doctors even told me if you lose weight, it'll get better. So as I lose weight, it'll get better. Better, better, better.
So the last question we'll work on tonight, I think, because we're getting up in there at the time again, is thinking about if you've assigned somebody else the task of making you happy.
I don't think I have because for so long that was how I how I functioned. Now, I mean, have I before? Yes, I have. Almost every relationship I was in before, I was in because I thought, okay, being with this person, having this person around will make me happy. But now I realize I have to be happy in order to be happy with that person. You can't be happy around. No one else can make you happy if you're not already happy with yourself. Just like nobody, just like the old saying, I don't know if it's old. I just made that up. The saying that I've heard around, it's no one can love you until you love yourself. And that's very true because if you don't love yourself, then you're not putting that out into the universe. Nobody's really going to love you.
It's you
There's
getting all
exceptions to the
spiritual on
rule,
this.
I'm sure. Hey, listen, I'm deep. Um, I listen. I know I'm here for comic relief like 90% of the time. Uh, we, but yeah, I don't want somebody to have to worry about themselves, making themselves happy and making me happy. So, I mean, even Ash, she makes me happy, but I'm also happy in life. It's not her job to make me happy. I also don't think it's my job to make her happy, but I think that being a job and it happening are two different things. I'm in my eyes. So it's not her job to make me happy or my job to make her happy, but we make each other happy as we make ourselves happy. I don't know. I just lost myself in a thought. So I think I need a reboot.
Yeah, if in that situation, and I found this with people, is that there's a certain level of happiness that somebody else can bring to them. And if they assign that as, okay, if I'm with them, I'm gonna be happy. They bring joy to me, which could be all true. But the thing about it is it's not their responsibility to do that. It's your responsibility to find your happiness being with them, but not that you have to be with them to be happy.
Right.
And I
That's what I
think
just
that's
said.
where this question, that's exactly,
I don't know if that's what
that's
I
what this
said.
question really, it's close enough. But that's what this question invokes for me is not, again, we, as a society, we try to give responsibility of a lot of things to a lot of things. So, like our health, we give the responsibility to a pharmaceutical company. For our our well-being, right, or our income, we give the responsibility to the job that we're in. Because if it's not done right, or it's then it's kind of the job's fault, or if somebody, there's a lot of things that go along with this, not just male and female, but finding happiness. I find happiness in the outside, but it's not the outside's responsibility. It's not a tree's responsibility to make me happy. It's
Exactly.
for me to connect with the happiness in that space. And when you give that responsibility to somebody or something, no matter if it's happy, health, or whatever it is, and that goes away, then you've lost that part of you
Right.
that could be happy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it is a deep question. Um, and it is a scary thought of assigning that to somebody else. It's, and one of the things we seem to, or I seem to jump back to, is that, um, what is it, Dr. Evil with Mini Me, and he says, "You complete me."
You complete me.
But but see, the assignment is that completion. I mean, that's a funny thing about it. But there are people that actually do that, or actually feel like they have to be with that person to be happy. And I want
Right.
people to understand the happiness comes from them, not from somebody else. Not their responsibility to make you happy. I mean, it started off with clowns, and they're kind of creepy now.
Well, but
I still like
speaking
clowns,
of
but a lot of
clowns,
people get freaked out by them.
Speaking of clowns, one of my favorite paintings you used to have, you might still have it, I don't know. The sad clown painting. I think what did he I don't know. You painted my face like him once, and I freaked out because I couldn't stand the paint being on my face or something. But that to this
Right.
day is still I
Remember that.
still remember that clown, and I still remember thinking that that was the saddest man, if that makes sense. Like he just looked like the saddest person on the earth, even though he had the smile painted and everything. He was just as you grow like as a kid, you don't really think of it that way, but I keep like every time I kept seeing him and I kept seeing that painting, it would just seem to be keep getting sadder and sadder. But that kind of goes back to the he felt like it was his responsibility to make people happy instead of worrying about making himself happy and then trying to put that energy out to other people.
Right. And the thing, it's a perfect analogy because it's Emmett Kelly
Yeah, that.
is the
Mhm.
clown, and he's sweeping up. This was his part of at the end of the show. He'd sweep up the spotlight, and that's what that picture was. So when he finished sweeping up the spotlight, the joy that or the happiness that people allowed themselves to feel, not that he gave to them, but allowed themselves to feel, didn't go away when the spotlight was completely swept up.
Right.
His sadness was he was leaving that show.
Right.
So it was pretty interesting your take on that.
Surprised I remember that. That's a long time ago.
It was.
But then again,
Yeah, and
that's
that's what I, like there's parts of your childhood you can't remember, but there's like same thing with me, but there's definitely things that I do remember.
yeah, like
But yeah, that's
just
your
that
mom
painting. I
probably still
always
has
love
that
that painting.
painting.
I'll have to see because that would be one. That'll be one for if that I want. I want that one.
Yeah, that's a good connection. I love that connection. So we have about 5 to 10 more questions for next week.
All right, so I think that's good. That's a good amount. And I have a couple. We might have a guest next week. I'm not sure yet. I'm trying to finagle it, but we will be having more guests as the show goes on, and it'll be very interesting to see the takes of different people coming onto the show. It'll be. I'm really excited about it because Dad's and my groups are. I won't. I don't want to say opposites, but on different ends of the spectrum. They both want the same things, but like how you have knowledge, I have experience. It's very similar. The people that we know and the people that we're going to have on. It's going to be really, really fun to be expanding our horizons.
Call to action. I'll let you go first today. You're ready.
Oh, all right. My call to action is get some sunlight.
Get
Like
the
Dad
tools
said,
out of the toolbox and start using them.
go outside and just stand barefoot on the ground. I know it's cold. Just do it. Just one time. You don't have to do it every day. You don't have to do it a bunch. Just go out there for 10 minutes, barefoot, stand on the grass, and just close your eyes and relax. Take everything in, every little sound, every little feeling you feel on your feet. It's an eye-opening experience, and it'll be a great thing for everybody, I think. You next.
I want to get some people to share how they're decluttering their lives in whatever levels, and if they are, or if there's something that they intend to do, share that with us either on any of the social medias or even on the an email or something like that. So just start start. Let's get a little bit more interactive so we have more perspectives and
Right.
more ideas about what's going on out there. Because you may come up with something that's 1,000 people may need to hear or more, and I think that's important to start the community, to start working on getting connected and like we talked about 3 or 4 again, was get engaged with this because it is something that is changing lives, and we want it to change
Right.
more lives. We want a lot of people to listen and stick into our goofiness and you know feel how true our hearts are to this mission.
Right, for
That would
sure.
be
And
mine.
I like that one. I like it a lot. Good one. And we'll start. I'll start putting like maybe some surveys out on Facebook and stuff. I got a bit better about that.
Yeah, that's we'll add people like the science studies and stuff, so I'll get some of those and we'll put them wherever we need to put them, or Bobby will put them wherever he needs to put them. He's teaching
You
me
can do it
slowly,
too.
but we'll get
We'll
there.
get you.
We'll get it. I figured out the thing to today. So, excuse
Boggling my mind.
me. All right. So remember, you are not broken and you're not alone. We love everybody out there.
Love you guys.
Have a great evening. Have a great whatever time of the day you're seeing this or hearing it.
And every other day.
That's right.
If you could see you, if you could see you.